Two girls kiss passionately, bodies moving in synchronicity. One of the girls, Sophie, says I love you to her girlfriend, B. A heartbeat of silence passes. Sophie assures B that she does not need to say it back. Pop rock music blasts on stereo as Sophie drives them to a hurricane party with her rich friends. In the passenger seat, B scrolls through her phone as she stalks Sophie's friends. B asks regarding a guy named David, and Sophie answers that they were once lovers in preschool. B airs out that Sophie's friends look impressive. Sophie tells her girlfriend she is impressive too, to try and soothe B's insecurity. B, being working class, finds that hard to believe. B suddenly gets a text from her mom and gets worried. Her carefree girlfriend quickly assures her that things will be just fine. They finally reach a large gate and enter the place of the party. B gets surprised that David's house is actually an isolated mansion. She comes back to the car to get her humble present and tries to make herself presentable. Then she follows Sophie inside. Her friends are enjoying themselves in the pool as Sophie arrives. They seem delighted to see Sophie again, except for Emma, David's girlfriend, who asks him in surprise and spite why Sophie is also at their party. B, on the other hand, goes deeper into the mansion. Sophie catches up with her friends. Sophie praises Alice regarding her podcast. B reaches the group, and without missing a beat, Sophie introduces her to her friends. She introduces David as her best friend, then Emma and Jordan. The new guy introduces himself as Greg, remarking as if he already heard some things about Sophie. This messes up the vibe in the air, and the group just quickly comes out of the water. Jordan sarcastically points out that she is surprised Sophie came to the party. Sophie explains that she saw it in their group chat, but replied in text. She further explains that she and B were supposed to come over earlier, but B suddenly got a work shift. Emma asks B where she works, and the group seems disappointed to know that B works only at a humble store in the town. Alice enters the scene again with a champagne bottle in hand. David groans as he reminds everyone that they cannot touch his father's things. Alice argues to let it go and just toast Sophie's arrival, since they rarely see her. Alice asks for Greg's help to open the bottle, and Greg does not miss the chance to show off by slicing the cork off using a sword belonging to David's father. The girls squeal their amazement. While David is not happy that another of his father's things has been touched, it's maybe more on the fact that someone else stole the limelight. The group proceeds to pour themselves glasses and enjoy the champagne. Sophie, a sober addict, declines when Jordan offers. The group of friends toast for the hurricane, and as if toasting with them, the sky rumbles and rain finally pours. Before the gang goes back inside, Sophie asks Jordan where Max is, one of their friends. Jordan just tells her that Max is just resting, and will come back to the party soon. Inside, David walks in on Sophie and B making out. He asks Sophie for a moment to talk. The two go to another room to talk privately. B just proceeds to explore the house. Jordan oddly tells her to be careful with Sophie, and walks away. B is weirded out, but then just continues to explore the mansion. David and Sophie, on the other hand, sit in front of each other in one of the rooms. Apparently, David just wants to vent to Sophie regarding his insecurities to Greg. He seems to cannot accept the fact that the 40-year-old guy whom Alice just met on the internet is way cooler than him. Sophie just laughs it away and asks what happened to David's bruised eye. David answers that Max punched him. Sophie is surprised, but they continue catching up with each other. As B walks along the house, she sees Greg meditating, and the other girls having fun and doing TikTok. B approaches them and asks for the Wi-Fi password, then appears to take a call. After that, B feels awkward. Alice seems to notice this and offers her a drink. This helps B feel at ease with the company. Eventually, B eases up and joins them. The girls talk about B, and are amazed that she is already 6 weeks in a relationship with Sophie. They continue chattering. Later that night, the company still parties. They dance, kiss, smoke, and make out. All except Jordan, the only one who does not have a partner in the room. Emma leaves David alone, as he keeps on biting and biting her while they are kissing. Sophie sees this and teases David. He explains that he has himself too much. Emma just pulls Jordan out of the room and comes back later on. Everyone now dances. Alice pulls B away from Greg to dance with her boyfriend. Jordan comes closer to B. She asks B if she goes to college in their town. B replies that she graduated from Utah University. On the other hand, David keeps on chugging beer, and Sophie tells him sternly to chill out. David then points out to Sophie that B is having fun with Jordan. Then Sophie sees that Jordan is dancing closely and intimately with her girlfriend. Jordan seems to notice Sophie looking, but still does not stop dancing close to B. Sophie, fed up with her jealousy, stops the music, and she invites everyone to play Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Sitting on the floor, the group is now listening to Sophie explain the mechanics of the game. There will be a secret murderer. Before she can continue, Emma warns the group that every time they play the game, it ends up ugly. The group just bully Emma that it is just her who always cries. Emma sits herself on her boyfriend's lap and asks him where Max is, saying that he hasn't been replying to her text. David seems to be annoyed and drops Emma to the ground. Greg asks Sophie to continue explaining the game. Sophie complies. In Bodies, 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 the lights will go out and the murderer will sneak around to touch someone to murder them. Then this person will drop like they are actually a corpse. Alice imitates this teasingly. David suddenly asks Alice to use in another room. Sophie continues on explaining the game. When someone comes across a body, they will scream bodies, bodies, bodies. Then the lights will turn back on, and the group will figure out the murderer. The group do a hitting game first, wherein a person takes a shot and slaps the person to their right, and the person they slap will do the same. When it is B's turn to slap David, she hits him softly. The group encourages B to slap David harder. David suddenly punches Greg, who is sitting on his right. He says that it is only to make an example for B, but everyone agrees that he is just being a jerk. Greg drinks his shot and walks out. Alice follows him. The group continues, and Emma asks who will hit her, given that it is supposed to be Greg. Jordan does not miss a beat to volunteer and slaps Emma hard. They laugh, and the group decides to finally start playing bodies, bodies, bodies. Everyone comes back to play. One by one they turn off the lights and find their places in the large mansion. Sophie holds the last lamp that still illuminates the house and walks towards B. She momentarily teases her girlfriend before shutting it off, finally letting the darkness cover the entire isolated mansion. B crawls along the house with her phone flashlight. She sees Alice with her neon necklaces and bracelets, and the girl quickly hides from her. She then sees Jordan walking around, and B hides. Bodies, bodies, bodies is thrilling. Greg suddenly shocks her at the stairs, before he goes back up again. A few seconds later, someone shouts, bodies, bodies, bodies. The lights around the house turn on, and there they see Greg's body, limp on the carpet. Alice dramatically mourns her boyfriend. The remaining member of the group now tries to figure out the murderer. David nominates Emma. He reasons that she agrees to everybody, and that it has always been her strategy in the game. Jordan nominates David. She reminds them that David threw the first punch at Greg earlier. B suddenly notices that Greg is not moving. She alerts the group, and Alice tries to get her boyfriend to get up, but Greg is not moving at all. Alice and the group start to panic. Just when she is about to lose it, David puts a cold bottle of beer on Greg's groin, and the new guy bolts up. They laugh and come back to figuring out the murderer. Alice nominates Jordan. She adds that Alice is always aggressive when she is the murderer. David agrees, and Jordan shouts defiantly. Sophie says that Jordan's voice always rises like this when she is lying. David and Jordan continue to throw the blame between each other. Greg blurts out that the best defense is a good offense. Sophie and the girls tell him that he can no longer join the discussion, as he is already out. David catches Greg's words and confronts him on what it means. Greg just explains that it is what it is. David continues to provoke Greg and insists to elaborate it for the group. Greg happily obliges at first, but Sophie blurts out laughing. David tells her to keep it down, as he is teaching Greg something. Greg then catches that David is not sincerely asking, and only toying with him. David sarcastically denies this and says that they are just having fun. Greg stares off with David. Greg breaks into a smile, and just claims that he will now go to bed. The group quickly gets back to having fun and playing the game. David points out that Emma has not said a word since she was nominated. Then he sees her swallow and points this out. He says that she always does this. Alice agrees. David continues that he finds Emma's swallowing unattractive. Alice, under the influence of, asks if this is the reason why the couple no longer make love with each other. David seems ashamed and accuses Emma of talking about their relationship behind his back. Emma tries to explain to her boyfriend, but David keeps on shushing her. Emma exclaims that David always gaslights her like this. David says that gaslight is a big, overused word and actually means nothing. The girls now stare in disappointment at David. He continues to insult Emma. She looks at David defeatedly as tears fall from her eyes. Jordan raises her hand and votes David as the murderer. Alice seconds it. David tries to argue that Emma is an actress, and she is just acting. Emma casts the third vote for David, and Sophie quickly follows her. David suddenly slams his hand on a glass beside him, shattering it. This surprises everyone in the room. David storms out as he curses the game. The girls continue drinking and play the hitting game again. Suddenly, the lights around the house go off. Sophie thinks that it is just David pranking them. They check their phones and find out that they also don't have any signal. Jordan decides to go to the basement and garage to find the breaker and flips it back. Alice gets more flashlights, and Emma goes to the bathroom. B also follows. Sophie continues calling on David. While B is walking to the bathroom, she enters the wrong room, and Sophie follows to tell her. But as they arrive in one of the rooms, they suddenly hear a slam against the glass window. When they look at it, they see David's bloody body sliding off to the wet ground. Now, this terrifies B. She stands frozen in fear in her spot. A few heartbeats later, she and the other girls check on David. They huddle around his bloody frame as the hurricane rages outside. There is a slit on the guy's neck. Jordan initiates contacting 911 in the landline, but there is still no signal. She proceeds to ask for Sophie's car keys, and quickly walks out to the hurricane to Sophie's car. The girls follow. Arriving at the car, they all get in, but Jordan seems to have trouble starting it. The battery is out. The girls feel hopeless that they cannot ask for help outside the isolated mansion. There is still no signal, and no other cars available. Apparently, all the others didn't bring their cars, as Max picked up all of them. Now Max is gone with his car, after his incident with David. The girls go back inside the mansion. Jordan tries but fails to find a generator. At the room, Alice starts asking about Max's whereabouts. She says that Max may have been the one that did this. Sophie asks what happened the other day, and apparently Max confessed that he is in love with Emma and had a fight with David. Jordan asserts that Max could never do all this. and the culprit is more likely Alice's boyfriend Greg. Jordan begins questioning Alice regarding Greg. Alice can't answer. This frustrates Jordan and troubles the group. The group realizes that Emma is no longer with them. Alice remarks that maybe the culprit is Emma. Sophie quickly shuts her accusation down. The group proceeds to find Emma and checks on Greg. They arrive at the room where Greg is supposed to be sleeping, but the new guy is nowhere to be found. Instead, they find the guys go back, with weapons inside, and a map with the mansion's location encircled. Sophie suggests that they also look for a gun. During all this, Alice still keeps on blaming it all on Max. In another room, they find Emma huddled under a blanket. They approach her. Alice finds pills and takes them along with Emma. Walking around the house now, the group finally sees Greg. He is lying on the floor. The girls approach and surround him. Alice asks her boyfriend where he has been, and why he isn't responding to Alice's calls. Greg explains that he has his headphones in, and he wasn't able to sleep, so he came to this room and tried to do his exercises. Greg asks the girls if they are still playing the game, and starts teasing them. He pretends to attack them, and the girls scream in terror. Greg notices that they have his go bag, and Jordan holds his knife, now pointing at him. Alice confronts him about why he has a go bag. Greg answers that it is because of the hurricane. Sophie asks why he has the house encircled on his map. Greg asks the group what is going on. The girls tell him that David's body was found outside. Emma starts to cry and accuses Greg. Greg thinks they're talking about the game and clarifies that he's already out. Jordan clears it to him that this is no longer a game. David is actually deceased and his throat was slit. To top it off, Sophie adds that it was slit with a sword. At this point, all the girls now have weapons pointing at Greg. Plastered, Greg thinks that the girls are toying with him again. He grabs the knife in Sophie's hand and takes a step back. He asserts that they all need to take a deep breath. He turns to his girlfriend to ask what is actually going on, but Alice answers that she doesn't know and cries. Greg commands everyone to put down their weapons. Jordan haggles that they will do it once he drops his own weapon. Greg agrees, but as soon as he does, Jordan and Sophie charge into him. Sophie fails to get his weapon. Alice keeps on telling everyone to stop. Then a loud bang echoes in the room. Everyone stops, and Greg drops down the floor, revealing B at his back holding a bloody piece of glass. Greg tries to reach for Sophie, but B swings the shattered glass again, now hitting the guy's head. Greg's body drops to the floor. Alice's cries thrill the room. Alice firmly says that they did a wrong thing. Jordan asserts that Greg is the most likely one to commit violence, because he's the only one who has a history of serving in the military. Alice clears this misconception, saying that she called Greg a vet not because he is a veteran, but rather because he is veterinarian's assistant. Jordan still argues that it is Greg, because among them, he was the person they know the least, whereas all of them are friends who have known each other forever. Alice reminds Jordan that they murdered Greg, or more appropriately, B did. B suddenly throws up. Sophie tells her girlfriend to change clothes. Emma and Jordan walk out. Sophie, devastated, does again after being sober for years. The girls now huddle in a room. Alice goes on again that the murderer could be any of them. She says that it could have been really Max. Emma tells Alice to stop, and says that just because Max is in love with her doesn't mean that he would attack David. Sophie suddenly snaps and tells Emma to stop making this about her. Sophie says she is upset that her best friend is gone and proceeds to throw insults at Emma, telling her that she never loved, nor even liked, David. Emma exclaims that Sophie is toxic, and David was actually relieved when Sophie left their town. Sophie wishes Emma was the one who'd lost her life. Then she storms out of the room. Emma is left crying. In another room, B chooses her change of clothes and cleans the blood off herself. Sophie rummages through things to find pills. She then goes and apologizes to Emma, but Emma kisses her in response. Sophie pulls away and scolds her that not everyone wants to make out with her. Sophie offers Emma the pills instead. Emma accepts it and walks away. Alice goes around the house to find B. B sees Jordan finding Sophie along the corridor. Sophie just stares out the window. The hurricane is still rampaging strong outside. Alice suddenly hears a thud sound. Fear slowly rises up like a cold finger at the back of her neck, and she runs in panic. She suddenly trips over something and lands on a soft and wet surface. She opens the light of her phone, and there she sees Emma's bloody body, limp on the floor. Alice's screams thrill through the dark night once again. Alice asks for help and calls for Jordan. Jordan comes, followed by B. Jordan suggests that it may have been an accident, but Alice firmly believes that someone pushed her. She claims that she was right all along. Greg is not the one who did it, and the murderer is still with them. Sophie arrives. Alice starts her accusations and anxious ramblings once again. She asks B her questions. She thinks the culprit is following the pattern in the game. David, Greg, Emma. Jordan argues that in the game, Greg lost his life first, followed by David, whom they executed. Contrary to reality, David was murdered first and they executed Greg. Alice then corrects her chant, Greg, David, Emma. Alice still argues that the culprit follows the pattern, because it is still playing the game. Jordan shushes her, claiming that she is just on too many. Alice says that they all are. B blurts out that she is not, and their attention shifts to B. They find it weird that B is also wearing makeup. Alice now points her accusation to B. Jordan admits that she knows B lied earlier when she said she graduated from Utah University. Jordan apparently Googled her and found out that B didn't even attend any classes there. Jordan and Alice are now skeptical and careful over B. B tries to explain, especially to her girlfriend, but Alice pulls her away from Sophie. The situation escalates again, and Alice starts to violently push B out of the house. B is pushed outside in the open as the hurricane rages on. Alice locks the doors and windows to ensure B can't go back inside. B quickly runs and struggles to get into the car for shelter. In the car, she eats the leftover junk food and switches out her wet clothes. As she rummages through the things in the car, she finds Jordan's yellow underwear, a pair of the ones she saw inside the house earlier. Back at the house, Jordan warns Sophie to stay in the room while she goes out. B tries and fails to open the massive gate of the mansion. She proceeds to check again inside the house through peeking in a window. She sees someone pick up a phone in one hand, while holding a gun in the other. B finds an opening into the house through a dog door. She goes in and grabs herself a weapon. The girls are surprised to see B inside the house again. B warns her girlfriend that Jordan has a gun, and tells Jordan to stay away from her girlfriend. Sophie quickly backs off. Jordan tries to reach for Sophie's hand, saying that she has no gun. B challenges her to empty her pockets. Jordan does so, and drops everything inside her pocket. There is no gun, but there is a paper with an X mark on it. Alice points this out and freaks out that Jordan is the murderer. Jordan confesses that she is, but only in the game. B also pushes her resolve that Jordan is the one behind this. Jordan defends herself, saying that she could not have murdered David and Emma because they are her oldest friends. B points out that Jordan is the last one that showed up when David's body fell. She might also have been the one who pushed Emma, and that she really saw her get a gun. Jordan says that B is a liar. Alice agrees that B indeed lied earlier. B is forced to explain that she really didn't graduate from Utah University because she needed to look after her mom, who has a borderline disorder. She confesses that she was recently fired from her previous job and is still currently looking for one. Alice tries to sympathize, but Jordan shushes her. B continues that she just didn't tell Sophie because she didn't want to disappoint her. Sophie hugs her girlfriend. Jordan suddenly grabs something at the couch and points it at B. It is a gun. She can't believe that they are touched by B's story. Sophie asks Jordan where she got the gun. Jordan answers that it is owned by David's wealthy father. Sophie continues to ramble her disbelief, but Jordan snaps at Sophie. She says that Sophie wasn't even invited to the party, but she suddenly showed up bringing a psychopath, referring to B. Jordan confesses that they actually debated on inviting her. Alice agrees, and says that David told her that Sophie begged him to talk to her parents, to trust her again. And this is the reason why Sophie came back. Sophie feels betrayed by what she is hearing. At gunpoint, their issues with each other come forth. Jordan reveals that they really find Sophie toxic and abusive, especially during her addiction, and that they didn't appreciate that Sophie just suddenly showed up after ghosting them. Sophie says she really needed help. Jordan turns to B and says that she actually made love with Sophie in her car. Sophie denies this. Sophie reveals that Jordan is actually just hate listening to Alice's podcast. This hurts Alice, and she spews hurtful words to Jordan. She says that no one actually likes Jordan, and insults her by saying that they're not actually rich, but upper middle class, and that Sophie wouldn't date someone like her, who is too meticulous and has a superiority complex. Jordan snaps and shoots Alice in the foot. Alice resolves that Jordan is the murderer. Jordan keeps saying that she didn't murder anybody. Sophie asks her to put the gun down. Jordan claims Alice made her do it. They fight over the gun. While they are doing so, a loud bang suddenly erupts in the room. Alice's bloody body limps on the floor. The world pauses briefly for them. Jordan says she didn't do it, and quickly comes back to her senses, grabbing the gun again and pointing it at Sophie and B. She begs them to not follow her. Sophie slowly approaches Jordan. B follows, and runs up to get the gun. B and Jordan fight over it again. As they thrash, B pushes Jordan over the railing, causing her to fall off, landing on broken glass. Jordan shouts for B to look at Sophie's messages with her before she starts shooting them, lying on the floor. B and Sophie run away. Inside a closet, they ask each other if the other person murdered Emma. They both answer no. Sophie assures her girlfriend that B can tell her if she did. B keeps firm that she really didn't. And the same goes for David. She only did it to Greg to protect Sophie. B asks Sophie if she really made love with Jordan. Sophie answers no. She claims that she loves B, and asks her if she feels the same. Sophie extends her arms towards her girlfriend, but B flinches away. Sophie says that she just wants to touch B. She does so again, but B flinches again and runs away. Sophie follows her, but B keeps running away. Sophie keeps finding her, and saying that she loves her and they need to stay together. B walks around the house and sees Emma's body again, and Alice's and Jordan's. It is now morning, and sunlight seeps through the mansion and illuminates its grisly scenes. Outside, B also sees David's body. Arms suddenly embrace B from the back. Sophie finds her, with the gun now in her hand. Sophie cries and admits that Emma got too high from the pills she gave her, and she tripped and fell. B comforts her, but when they break from the hug, B suddenly gets the gun and points it at Sophie. B asks for Sophie's phone to check her messages with Jordan. Sophie declines and instead throws it far away. B runs to get it, and Sophie follows suit. The two struggle over the phone, and they both fall in a pond. When they rise from the water, they grab the phone and see that it is not Sophie's, but rather David's phone. B opens it using David's face recognition. There, they see David doing a trick for a TikTok video. The one that Greg did, opening the bottle through slicing its cork off with a sword. In the video, they see that David struggles to do so and suddenly slits his own neck with his father's sword. David was not murdered. There was never a culprit. Max enters the gate of the mansion. He skims the scene at the mansion and asks what happened. B and Sophie, now on their knees, tremble in terror, or is it in relief? B says she has a signal on her phone now.